What if half an acre could feed 15 animals year-round without relying on store-bought hay? Most small livestock owners are stuck in the same cycle. Every season, you buy hay. Every year, the price climbs. Drought somewhere else raises your cost. Fuel spikes, supply tightens, and suddenly you're spending $1,200 to $2,400 a year just to keep 15 animals fed. It's not a land problem, it's not a winter problem, it's a structure problem. There's a simple rotating system that can run on less than half an acre and dramatically reduce how much hay you need, if it's laid out correctly. If lowering your annual feed bill, making your land more productive, and building real independence on a small U.S. homestead matters to you, this channel is built for that. Every week on Nature's Hidden Value, we break down practical systems that help you depend less on outside suppliers and more on your own acreage. Don't miss the next strategy that could save you thousands. Subscribe and stay with us. The quiet problem most small landowners face isn't effort, it isn't commitment, it's rising input costs you can't control. Feed prices rise every year. Hay shifts with drought, transportation costs fluctuate, supply chains tighten, and small farms feel it first. When you depend entirely on purchased hay, your animals are tied to the market. A fodder system changes that. In simple terms, it's a rotating method of growing fresh, living feed directly on your own land, so something is always producing. Grains, legumes, leafy crops, grown in staggered blocks, so you harvest one while the others continue growing. By the time you finish cutting the last section, the first one is already regrowing. That's the loop. No panic buying, no bare ground everywhere, just controlled rotation. And here's something most people underestimate. Fresh, living fodder isn't just cheaper, it's often more nutritious than dry hay. Living plants retain moisture, enzymes, and nutrients that hay loses during curing and storage. Animals frequently need less volume when fed fresh. Half an acre is genuinely enough when structured properly. For 15 mixed animals, dividing that space into 4 to 6 rotating blocks creates a steady feed rhythm. Each block supports roughly 2 to 4 weeks before you rotate forward. You never harvest everything at once, you always have the next section growing. The 5 crops that actually power this system, not random choices, high-output plants proven to work on small U.S. properties. First, sorghum sudan grass. This is your warm season engine. It grows fast, handles heat well, and most importantly, it regrows after cutting. You plant it once, cut it down, and within weeks it pushes back from the same root system. Multiple harvests from one planting. It feeds goats, cattle, horses, and sheep effectively across much of the United States. Second, and this is what makes year-round feeding possible, sprouted barley. 1 pound of dry barley seed, 7 days, 6 to 7 pounds of fresh green fodder. No soil, no field. Just shallow trays, water, warmth, and moderate light. Chickens, rabbits, goats, sheep, pigs, horses, they all take to it readily. And because it grows indoors, it produces in January, during drought, during frost, during ice storms. This is your winter safety net. Third, turnips and other brassicas. One plant gives you 2 feed sources. Leafy tops, dense roots. They thrive in cooler temperatures, fall and early spring, exactly when warm season crops slow down. Sheep and pigs especially benefit. They bridge the seasonal gap. Fourth, legumes. Cowpeas and soybeans in warmer regions, field peas in cooler climates. They provide protein for your animals, and at the same time, they fix nitrogen directly into your soil. Every cycle improves the next. You're feeding animals and building fertility simultaneously. And fifth, comfrey. Plant it once, harvest for years. It's perennial, high in protein, and can be cut multiple times per season. The smartest strategy is planting it along fence lines and borders, places that weren't producing anything anyway. It works quietly in the background. Now here's where most systems fail: layout. Not because the crops fail, because daily friction builds. Blocks planted too far from the barn, water positioned inconveniently, no clear walking paths, sprouting trays set up somewhere annoying to reach. Distance slowly turns into resistance. The solution is simple. Divide your half-acre into 4 to 6 clear, rotating blocks. Leave wide, comfortable walking paths between each one. Position water as close as physically possible, and place your indoor barley sprouting station in a garage corner, barn space, or covered porch that's easy to access daily. When friction drops, consistency rises, and consistency is what makes this system work for years instead of weeks. Now let's walk through what makes this system truly different. Not just productive in May, not just impressive in July, but stable in December. Because that's the real question most people have. What happens in winter? What happens during a 3-week dry stretch? What happens when frost hits hard and your fields slow down? A real system doesn't collapse when conditions change, it adapts. Here's how a properly structured half-acre fodder system runs through all 4 seasons in the United States. Spring and summer are your high-output months. Sorghum Sudan grass is growing aggressively. Legumes are active in fixing nitrogen. Your rotation is moving steadily from block to block every few weeks. This is when your outdoor production does the heavy lifting. Feed costs drop to their lowest point of the year. You're harvesting fresh daily, you're watching regrowth happen in real time. And this is also when you establish your comfrey along fence lines and borders, so the roots build strength before winter arrives. Then fall begins the handoff. Warm season crops slow down as nights cool. This is where brassicas step in. Turnips and similar crops actually prefer cooler temperatures. They fill that seasonal gap when summer crops fade. At the same time, this is when you scale up your indoor barley sprouting, not in December. Not when you're desperate. You start increasing production in fall so it's running smoothly before winter truly sets in. That transition matters. Because winter is not a shutdown, it's a shift. During winter, sprouted barley becomes the core of the system for smaller animals. Chickens, rabbits, goats. They do extremely well on consistent daily fresh sprouts. Stored root crops harvested in fall, turnips, beets, carrots, support that ration. For larger animals like sheep or cattle, you may still supplement with some hay during the coldest stretch. But here's the difference. Hay becomes backup, not survival. You're no longer buying full winter dependency, you're buying partial support. And that changes the math completely. Traditional annual feed costs for 15 animals often range between $1,200 and $2,400 depending on region and conditions. A well-running half-acre fodder system typically requires $150 to $350 annually in seed and minimal inputs once established. That's a potential savings of $900 to $2,000 or more per year. Over 5 years, that's thousands retained. That's fencing upgraded. That's water systems improved. That's money that stays on your property instead of leaving it. And here's something that makes this even easier to manage long-term. Keep a simple harvest log. Nothing complicated, a notebook. Write down which block you cut, the date, and a short note about regrowth. That small habit removes guesswork. It eliminates mental strain. It keeps the rotation smooth. If this is already helping you see your property differently, take a moment and hit the like button. It helps this reach other U.S. homesteaders who are trying to lower costs and build more resilient systems. This is how to start this without overwhelming yourself. Because this is where many people hesitate. They assume it requires a big launch. It doesn't. Step 1. Choose one crop. Just one. If you're in a warmer region, sorghum sudan grass is an excellent starting point. If you are in a colder region or starting early in the year, begin with indoor barley. Learn one crop well before adding complexity. Step 2. Clear a small section. Even a 20 by 20 foot block is meaningful. Prepare it simply, plant it, observe how it performs in your specific soil and climate. Let experience teach you. Step 3. Set up a basic barley sprouting shelf. A few shallow trays, whole barley grain, water. Within 1 week, you'll have fresh green feed in your hands. And more importantly, you'll understand the cycle before you depend on it heavily. Step 4. Only add a second outdoor block once your first rotation is producing reliably. This isn't hesitation, it's strategy. You're building something sustainable, not something exciting for 6 weeks that burns you out. Step 5. Plant comfrey cuttings along your fences and borders as early as possible. They require little once established, and they'll quietly produce for years. But there's something deeper here. This system isn't just about lowering feed costs, it's about removing dependence. There's a shift that happens when you realize your animals are eating because of your land, not because of a supplier's truck. That shift builds confidence, stability, control, and that's what small homesteads are really about. Now let's talk about the one reason most fodder systems quietly fail even when the crops grow perfectly. It's not the soil, it's not the weather, it's not the animals. It's friction. Distance is what kills consistency. The fodder block gets planted just a little too far from the barn. The water source requires dragging a hose across half the property. The harvest basket is slightly too heavy when full. The sprouting trays are set up in a place that requires bending and reaching every single morning. None of these feel like big problems at first, but repetition turns small inconvenience into resistance. And resistance turns into skipped days, then skipped weeks, then abandonment. The fix is simple, and it costs nothing. Before you add anything new to your system, remove one friction point. Move your primary fodder blocks as close as physically possible to your animal feeding area. Even 20 feet closer makes a difference. Position your sprouting station near the barn entrance or pen gate, not across the property. Adjust the height of your shelving so you're not bending awkwardly every morning. Choose a harvest basket that's large enough to make the trip worthwhile, but light enough to carry comfortably when full. Clear the walking path so it's safe in early morning light. These are not comfort preferences, they are sustainability decisions. The most productive homesteads are not built on extreme discipline, they are built on thoughtful design. When your system feels easy, you'll keep using it. When it feels heavy, you won't. Consistency beats motivation every time. And that's the deeper message here. This isn't just about feed, it's about control. It's about becoming the person who provides instead of the person who waits. When your animals are eating because your land is producing, something shifts internally. You're not reacting to the market anymore. You're operating on your own rhythm. You don't need a massive ranch. You don't need perfect weather. You don't need a large budget. You don't need decades of agricultural experience. You need one well-designed system. Half an acre, structured correctly, is genuinely enough to feed 15 animals year-round and significantly reduce one of the largest recurring expenses on a small U.S. homestead. So here's the real question. If you could eliminate or dramatically reduce one recurring expense on your property this year, would it be feed? If half an acre could give you back control over hay prices, what would that change for you financially? Would it allow you to expand, improve infrastructure, reduce stress? Which crop would you test first? Sorghum sudan grass? Sprouted barley? Turnips? Legumes? Comfrey along your fence lines? Drop it in the comments. because your answer might be exactly what another small landowner needs to see to take their first step. If you want more clear, practical systems that lower costs, increase productivity, and build real independence without burnout, subscribe to Nature Hidden Value. Every week, we break down strategies that make small properties powerful. Start small, start imperfectly, but start. Because the only difference between the homesteads that thrive and the ones that stay stuck is one steady system built deliberately and the decision to begin.